Okay, now we're recording. Go ahead, Christina.
Okay, thank you so much. This is really an honor to be part of this meeting. Before I say anything, I'd love to just say I'm just so happy to see the Chenana still going. I was involved in its infancy with Sue and Susan West and Carol Burns from the hospital when I worked there, and it's just really wonderful to see the group going still. So, and thanks for the time to just talk a little bit about this program that I'm hosting with through a grant from the Plymouth Cultural Council, and there's also one on the Cape that I'll talk to you about, hosted by the Kiwanis of Sandwich. There are going to be two programs later this month. So just by way of background, Kids Songs a la carte is what I refer to as a musical health education program. And it's something of a legacy project for me as a singer-songwriter and a retired health educator. I created the program in 2005 at the request of a school nurse from Rockland Elementary School. It offers a variety of wellness and safety lessons with discussion questions together with original songs that illustrate or complement the topics. Since then, the songs have been used in schools and family-friendly community events. And I used to do a program called Folk Songs for Little Folks, and I would incorporate some of the songs that way too. In an effort to more broadly share the program, the health and safety information and the music in the program, I've created Kids Songs a la carte facilitator training program. I've created a toolkit with all of the songs and some questions and discussion questions and activities that folks who work with kids, anybody who works with kids, can be anybody, can be teachers, parents, peer counselors, relatives, anyone who likes to work with children. And so it's a train the trainer model. So that's what I've come to talk to you today about today. So one important thing is that no musical expertise is required. There are pre-recordings of the songs that are available, but it's great if folks can learn to sing and play them themselves, which is a lot of fun. The concepts can be tailored depending on the age of the children. They're all sorts of age groups that they would apply. And they include the health and safety information, and then instructions on how to make food models and props to help kids understand the lessons. It also introduces some musical elements, such as how minor keys can signal a warning type of some sort, as in the song Lipid Blues. Cholesterol has been clogging up my arteries and that kind of thing. Or it can demonstrate a simple thing like counting and rhythm. And so there are discussion questions in songs about making healthy choices, listening, speaking respectfully, songs about diversity, self-empowerment, bully prevention, as well as washing hands and first aid for choking. We have, depending on the age of the child, we have some exercises and songs that refer to reading labels, and there are a few math lessons included. For instance, in the example of concentrated calories, we talk about concentrated calories and calculating calorie equivalents. Very simply speaking, and Carol Burns is going to help me out on some of these things too. In the sandwich program, I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But we are using some. For instance, we're going to try to prove and show how these food models, like a box of oatmeal and a pound of butter, minus a half a tablespoon of butter, have the same amount of calories. So we use visual models to show these are about equal, less 50 calories. And there's a math equation. So if you wanted to, for instance, multiply 21 servings in a whole box of oatmeal, and there are 150 calories a serving, you get 3,150 calories. And there's calculations for figuring out the butter. And so these are food models. This is the styrofoam stick of butter. This is just a regular box. And so we show people how to make those types of food models. And I'm not sure if you got this, Mike, but this is another, it's a diagram about how the different amounts of calories per gram, like in carbohydrates and proteins have 4 calories, and I'm sure you can see this very well, but maybe this can be sent out, but solid and liquid fats have 9 calories a gram, and alcohol for the adults has 7 calories a gram. So I'm grateful to, again, speak to the participants of both Chinook 23 and 27. As I said, 2 grants are sponsoring 2 programs. The one in the Plymouth Library, Plymouth Cultural Council is sponsoring the one at the Plymouth Library at 10 a.m. on October 22nd. And the other, sponsored by the Kiwanis Club of Sandwich, is at the library in Sandwich on October 29th. And my purpose here today is I'm just hoping that agencies affiliated with the community health networks will help spread the word about the program. And I think you may have flyers or have access to flyers about that, because the way the grants are structured, the Plymouth program is free of charge, and the one in Sandwich has a registration fee for $20 for members of the Sandwich Arts Alliance, and $25 for non-members. Aha, there they are.
I'm trying to share the screen, Christina. This is the flyer you had sent around,
Right,
and Kim
right.
did send this, so folks should
great.
have this. This is the food calorie chart if you want to talk about that.
Oh, that's great. This is just something that we'll talk about, and some of the songs will complement these. The food models will help complement the songs and the teaching. So, for instance, the fruit and veggie song highlights 5-a-day vegetables recommendations. Kernel promotes eating whole grains and things like that. Lipid Blues, as I said, shows that there are 9 calories a gram. So just a little will do. So that's the purpose of that song. So I'm honored also to be presenting this with many of my friends from when I worked at the hospital in way back in when was that, in the 80s, 90s? So you might know Ted Mello he's the former director of Plymouth and Cape Cod offices of the Massachusetts Rehab Commission. He performs the songs with me. Ted, you might know if you're on the Cape, also plays with Crabgrass Bluegrass on the Cape and other local Irish bands and things like that. My former workmates from BID Plymouth, when it was known as Jordan Hospital, will serve as content experts to help in the presentation. They can answer some of the more in-depth questions. Marcia Richards, who's a certified, you probably know Marcia, a certified health education specialist and registered dietitian, will be a resource for the Plymouth program. Carol Burns, who's chief clinical dietitian at BID, and she's a resident of Sandwich, will help me with the one on the Cape in Sandwich. Betty Antonellis is also a registered nurse and a health and safety educator, and she's going to help with some of the hand washing and first aid for choking descriptions and that kind of thing. And Susan West, as you all know, will be, she's a nurse also, and family education specialist with BID Plymouth and with the active parenting program and many other things. She wears a lot of other hats. I'm just so glad to have been just to stay connected with all these great folks, and that we're having a chance to do this together. So that's why I say it's kind of a legacy project for me. I'm retired now, and I can't do all these things, but the information and the songs have been important to me, and I just love to share them with others who would like to share them with others, with our kids, so, and families.
Christina, thank you so much. Let me ask, what's the target age group of the performances?
I'm sorry?
The target age group?
So elementary through middle school.
Okay.
But there can be involvement with high school kids who serve as peer counselors who might want to learn the songs and work with the younger kids, that kind of thing. So it can be really really adapted to different age levels. So.
And you performed at our health fair that we co-sponsored with
Yes.
the Plymouth Public Library, and
Right.
thank you to BID Plymouth for the donation and support of the health fair that actually paid for your performance. So we're very happy for that donation. And do you want to talk a little bit about how that went?
Yeah, it went really well. It was a beautiful day. It was a very windy day, but it was great. There were a lot of movement, a lot of people there, and we were able to share the songs from the program. And there was one little dancer, which was it's always fun to see a little 3-year-old dancing. Yeah, I was amazed at the number of agencies that were there presenting, who were exhibiting. It was just really a great day.
Yeah.
In spite of the wind.
Tom Comiskey's with us. He organized the fair. Thank you, Tom, for all your work on it. He just put in the chat, everyone said it was great to have music at the fair, which was new. We hadn't had that in the past. So, and you have, you mentioned them, but once you mention them again, you have 2 events coming up.
Right. One in October 22nd, and one October 29th. The program October 22nd is at the Plymouth Library at 10. The one in Sandwich at the library is October 29th.
Okay, awesome. And I think we have those flyers. If we I think we might have already sent them out, but we can certainly send them out again.
That would be great.
Does anyone have any questions for Christina?
Just want to say thank you. This is outstanding. I'm thrilled to be part of it as a old coworker and friend of Christina and also Susan. The amount of misinformation, inappropriate information in the nutrition community is really disheartening. So to have a vehicle to educate kids younger with logical, good information is really outstanding. My son is a soccer coach up in New Hampshire, and I'm going up to meet with his team because they're all doing fad diets and fasting and things that really aren't enhancing their athletic performance. And my brother is a teacher in Wisconsin, and he emailed me last night to say there's something on TikTok and my kids want to know why I bring my overnight oatmeal to school every day if it's bad for me. So the younger we get appropriate, logical nutrition information out there to kids and families and parent and anybody involved in raising kiddos is really outstanding. And of course, to do it by music, this is wonderful. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Carol. And thank you, Christina, for your presentation. And we're excited to hear more about it as you do more performances and get more folks trained. I think it'll be exciting.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Good to see you all.
Thank you. I neglected to ask folks to put their information in the chat, which is what we usually do. If you could just say who you are, where you work, why you're here, that type of thing, that would be really helpful. Sue, congratulations. Sue Giovanetti, congratulations. We had the special meeting at 8:50 this morning because I know we had so much to get to. So you have been elected to the steering committee. Do you have any, you want to give you a thank you speech or your acceptance speech?
Yeah. Yeah, the thank you speech would be, I'm sorry I was late.
No problem. We're glad to have you aboard and
Thank you.
very excited to expand our numbers.
Thank you.
Tom, I know you're off, Tom Comiskey. Do you want to say a little bit about the health fair? Because I unfortunately could not be there that day. I don't know if Tom's going to be able to turn his camera on or not. He just sent something in the chat. Hi, Tom.
I'm not officially working, but I just wanted to have this opportunity. Yeah, the health fair was very exciting. We had the most number of people this providers this year. And yeah, so, and I appreciate everyone's feedback because we learned a lot since it was a larger turnout. So thank you for giving your feedback. And everybody enjoyed being there. That we had lovely snacks and the music, and thanks to the generosity of BID Plymouth. And yeah, and we're hoping that we can do more things in the years to come. We're also hoping to pick a date that doesn't conflict with so many other activities happening in the area. So luckily there's 5 Saturdays in September next year. So, all right, well, thank you again.
All right.
And Christina, the music was very good. Yeah, definitely providing a space for that was terrific.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Okay, so we are going to go to our main speakers. First of all, I want to thank Ann Burke from Fenway Health and also from the Chenal 27, which is the Cape and Islands Chenal. Today's meeting and our presenters are co-presented by Chenal 23, which is us, South Shore Community Partners and Prevention, and Chenal 27, the Cape and Islands Chenal. And we hope to work together with them throughout this year as we provide more content and more speakers on topics of mutual interest. And there's obviously a lot of great stuff to talk about and a lot of great programs that are happening. So we're excited to have that sort of unofficial partnership going forward. I know Ian also turned her camera off, but Ian, I don't know if you want to say a little bit about that unofficial partnership, or maybe even introduce our speakers. I know I'm kind of
sure
splurging this on you at the last minute, but
Thank you. You forced me to turn my camera on. Good morning, everyone. I did meet with Chenal 23 steering committee last week and just sort of briefly talked about what our goals are for Chenal 27. We're hoping to recruit a couple of more members for the steering committee, and then we will probably meet quarterly as opposed to monthly. And of course, the members are more than welcome to join Chenal 23's meeting. I'm trying to think of what else I can say. We're very grateful that we were, taken in and cared for by Chenal 23. So really appreciate that. And
well, just to interject, I mean, as Christina said, I mean, keeping the Chenals going is it involves some effort, and it's not automatic. We don't have the support from DPH that we had 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. So
right.
I think it's important for Chenals to work together. We were working with the Brockton Chenal to try to get some grant funding. Unfortunately, we didn't. But we work with the other Chenals in the area when we can. And I think as we're trying to keep both Chenals sustained and active, I think it can only be helpful to work together.
It's also nice to get this over the bridge a little bit. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Scott.
Well, yeah, the beauty of Zoom is that we can meet virtually, but hopefully we will be able to get over the bridge for some in-person stuff in the future.
Right. Maybe we'll do something big and you all can come and join us. That would be great. So, but I will put a plug in for Scott and several other people. We are already planning for Pride Month for 2023. So look forward to save the date information and all the fun stuff that we're going to have there. And with that, let me introduce Adriana, who is the Director of Community Impact and Engagement at Fenway Health, and is the most awesome person, always answers her emails and just someone really easy to work with. I'm very grateful that we're work buddies. And then Dr. Ken Mayer, Medical Research Director and co-chair of Fenway's Institute. I don't know if either Adriana or Dr. Mayer want to just briefly talk about the Institute, because you can probably pay it better credence than I can. So I'm happy that you both came, and again, glad that Chennai 23 was willing to have us join them in the short term. And thanks. And I'm going to turn my camera off again.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Anne. I'm happy to start. Ken, would you like to share first a bit about the Institute before we dive in?
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to spend time with you today. So Fenway is a sort of unique organization because it's a federally qualified community health center that provides primary care for about 35,000 people, mainly in the immediate neighborhood around the health center, but a substantial number of people travel distances from around the state and even from other states. It's had a focus on sexual gender minority health, HIV and other infectious diseases since the early days of the AIDS epidemic. But there's also public health programs, which originally were called AIDS Action Committee, that deal with a lot of social determinants of health. So needle exchange programs, other harm reduction activities, housing assistance, legal assistance for people with HIV. So that's another part of the health center that's not directly patient care. And then what I co-direct with Dr. Jenny Potter is the Fenway Institute, which is the research, education, and policy part of Fenway. So sort of three different institutional cultures in one large organization, but all committed to primary care.
Thank you for that introduction, Ken, and I will dive in. Thank you all for having us. I like starting presentations with questions to ground us in what we're going to talk about and help inform how to move forward. And I'm going to invite you to do that via a website called Menti. I'm going to put the website in the chat as well as the code. You can access this in another browser or on your phone if you have a device. And if for some reason neither are accessible to you right now, you can also type in your responses into the chat. So I'll give you a moment to get to that place, and then I'll share my screen and you'll be able to see our responses. Can the host enable share screen, please?
Oh, sure. Sorry about that.
No problem.
At least I think I can. Hold on.
Sure.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you.
Should be good to go.
Yes. All right, I see that some of you have already had the opportunity to get into the system. Is anyone having any trouble getting in? All right, so as we see some of your responses come up to the first question, I'll read them aloud, and we'll spend about a minute on each slide and then move forward, but you're welcome to continue adding your responses. So what I'm seeing here in response to the question, how do you feel about the current monkeypox outbreak? Concerned. It's a bit concerning because I don't know enough about it. It seems to be abating. There are a lot of people at risk who are not able to get protected. I don't know enough about it. Misleading information. Don't know enough. I feel that I need more education on the topic, but I'm also exhausted of hearing about another scary outbreak. Not sure. I don't know enough. Give another few seconds for those of you that would like to contribute to this question. And those that are unable to access it, you're also welcome to put your response in the chat. Only vague information seems to be provided by the media. Aware, relieved that it's not as easily transmitted as we thought, still very focused on how it is spreading, and concerned 70% of people getting it are folks of color. Public health response has been lacking. That's a great segue to our next question, which I will move us to. How effective do you think the monkeypox response has been nationally and locally? Fair, very ineffective. Not as effective as it should be. Lack of awareness of resources. Fair, no idea. No clue. Not sure. Lack of coordination. I feel like the local response has been good, but I think there was a national issue with vaccine availability. Disjointed. Based on the last question, people do not know enough. Very delayed and not effective. The LGBTQ community has had to lead in many ways, like occurred with HIV. It's been hard getting folks to collaborate around vaccination clinics for a variety of reasons, but big piece is lack of education. Give another moment for anyone else that would like to contribute to this question. Thank you all for your responses so far. Effective. All right, I'm going to continue on, but you're welcome to contribute to this question in the system or in the chat. And the last question, what questions do you have about monkeypox? How is it spread? What can we do as a community to prevent spread? How common is this in the US? What can we do as nonprofits to promote education and resources? What are the symptoms and what should we look for? How long does the vaccine last? What behaviors put someone at high risk? How can we protect those who are most vulnerable? Who should be getting vaccine? Are there more testing options, and how easy is it to get a test? And give another moment for anyone else that has any questions they'd like to contribute. All right. Thank you all so much for participating in that activity to really help inform what we share for you today and what we can talk about. Your participation in that activity, in my opinion, is a participation in the prevention of monkeypox. And at Fenway Health, something that we've really strived for is to support people in understanding what their role in prevention might be. And I hope to share some of that with you all today, and also share how we at Fenway Health have played our role in prevention. So internally, when we first learned in May that a monkeypox outbreak was happening in the US, we educated our staff and providers on what monkeypox was and identified what the workflow and protocol would be for receiving patients that may present with characteristics of monkeypox. And externally, we have been doing a lot of engagement with the Department of Public Health, with the CDC, the White House, partner organizations like the LGBTQIA+ Primary Care Alliance, and a bunch of other health centers and community organizations. We've done a number of webinars, one of which we have this afternoon, and I'll be sure to drop that information in the chat if you're interested and available to attend today at 5. We meet with administration leaders, researchers, activists. We've really tried to be at the table with the community, and the community is so broad. The community is everyone. And so externally, we've worked on engaging with everyone at different levels and spheres of influence in preventing monkeypox. Something that we've created more tangibly for the community to circulate on social media, to give out in person when we're doing outreach activities, are fact sheets, answering a lot of the questions that you all actually just asked in the activity before. And some of those questions are what monkeypox is and how long it's been around, how monkeypox is transmitted and spread, what the symptoms of monkeypox are, how someone can protect themselves against monkeypox, what to do if you believe you have it, available treatment, the connection between monkeypox and gay and bisexual men, and stigma. And my colleague, Ken, I'll pass it to, will dive a little deeper into a lot of those questions that I just mentioned. What I'd like to talk more about is stigma. Stigma is defined as discrimination against an identifiable group of people, place, or nation. And it can lead people to not seeking care immediately, hiding symptoms, confirmed illness, or adopting unhealthy behaviors. I think the cause of stigma is fear. And I think at the root of fear is uncertainty or unknown. There are a lot of unanswered questions, and that could be a breeding ground for stigma. And not knowing and understanding something like I'd like to name can feel unsettling and increase defenses in the body, but it's an opportunity to understand how to respond rather than react in a way that's harmful to a person or people. I hope that we can all agree that the common goal is to prevent and treat the virus. And a tangible way to do that, in ways that we have encouraged members in the community, is to educate yourself on the facts and to own and name what you know and don't know. We also think it's really important to correct negative language and share accurate facts about how the virus transmits and is spread. And we like to make an agreement with members of our community where if they can agree that prevention and treatment is the goal, they can also agree that behaviors that are rooted in stigma is not the way to preventing monkeypox or in any infectious disease or condition. I also want to talk about the current outbreak that is seen among gay and bisexual men. We, in our prevention messaging, have been really clear about there being an outbreak in that particular network of people. And we feel like the health departments shouldn't shy away from that either, so that people who really need the information and resources can get it. Anyone can get monkeypox, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, age, sex, race. But right now, the members of our community that are experiencing outbreak are among gay and bisexual men. And it's important that we are clear about that so that people can get the information and resources they need. I like to talk about the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, when there were outbreaks among church members in Washington state and also among biotech conference attendees in Boston. It didn't mean that COVID-19 was a Christian disease or were more among people who worked in biotech. It just happened that the outbreak happened in those contexts and among those networks of people. And it's important for us to explain and understand that to others so that we don't create stigmatizing languages around public health crises, like calling monkeypox a gay disease, which it is not a gay disease. Prevention and treatment is such a team effort. And it's really something that we can't achieve unless we do it together. And so that's what I invite you all to do, and also encourage others to lean into as well. And with that, I'd like to pass it to my colleague, Dr. Ken Mayer.
Thanks, Adriana. So I'll start off with just a few of the facts of what we clearly know about this outbreak. At the present time, there's more than 70,000 people globally who have been diagnosed with monkeypox. And in the US, the numbers are in the order of 26, 27,000 cases. The rate of new infections seems to be slowing, but let's start back at the beginning. So first of all, what is monkeypox? It is in the family of viruses called pox viruses. So same family as chickenpox and particularly smallpox. And the relationship to smallpox is important because it's partially why, unlike COVID-19, for example, or HIV, we actually had effective vaccine available even as the outbreak started, because of smallpox vaccine being stockpiled because of anticipation of potential bioterrorism. So that's been part of the national strategic stockpile, which is an opportunity to do early vaccination, but the initial public health response was a bit slow on the uptake because our colleagues weren't really sure what the dimensions of this was going to be. The name monkeypox, some have felt that it's quite stigmatizing, and one can understand why a virus emanating from Africa, though it's unfortunate that there is that potential overlay, because there's a clunky system of scientists, when they name viruses, pick different conventions for different groups of viruses. And this family of viruses, they decided to, for several of them, to call them after the animal where they were first identified. So the first isolation of the virus that's associated with monkeypox occurred in a monkey, though ironically, monkeys are not the main reservoir for this virus. They're rodents such as prairie dogs are associated with this. The virus has been endemic in several countries in Western and Central Africa. And again, speaking to our parochialism, nobody was really paying much attention to this virus when there were several dozens of cases a year in some of these other countries. But what got global attention was the fact that evidently there were two parties, raves with large groups of people and fair amount of intimate sexual contact. One was in the Canary Islands, and it was followed shortly thereafter by a party in Antwerp. And these were either late April, early May of this year. And then clinicians in Western Europe started identifying cases of some atypical rash. And then isolation led to this diagnosis of monkeypox. And people started saying, gee, we're seeing a few cases here, we're seeing a few cases here. Are we at the beginning of an outbreak? And because we're in a global village, it didn't take very long. May 18th was the first diagnosis of a case of monkeypox in the US. And that was in Boston at Mass General Hospital. So there's a question about what what monkeypox entails. And like a lot of infections, there's a spectrum of manifestations. So not everybody reacts the same way. So one of the big questions where we don't have complete data yet is how many people might be completely asymptomatic and might be shedding monkeypox. That hasn't been well characterized. We do know that some people, that the virus can be identified in people a few days before they develop a rash. So classically, somebody might start feeling like they have a viral illness coming on. They might feel muscle aches, might have a low-grade fever, might feel fatigued. And you don't have to have all those symptoms, but those might be initial premonitory symptoms. And then what really tips off a clinician who's thinking about this, that this is monkeypox, is if they manifest a classic rash. And the rash start off as little red bumps that very quickly become vesicles. So there's a little bit of fluid in the bump. Vesicle can be described as a dewdrop on a rose petal, somebody said. So little fluid surrounded by redness. And those can become easily infected. And also when inflammatory cells come in, the clear fluid becomes kind of milky, crusty, and those lesions then eventually become scabs, and eventually the lesions scab off. Some people may have only one of these, and some people may have dozens. The location of the lesions also can be throughout the whole body, but also can be where a person was first exposed. And so there are cases of people developing this only around and in the rectum, or only around the genitals, or only around the mouth and the throat. So variety of different manifestations. So what should tip off a clinician now about this is if somebody has a sexual history of potential exposure. Testing for it is still not simple. One has to rub a swab over one of the lesions and send it off to a lab for a specialized assay. Turnaround in Massachusetts is pretty good, several days, but a lot of the management is symptomatic management and sort of doing sort of common sense clinical things in terms of keeping the sores clean and avoiding them getting secondarily infected. A person stops being infectious once the lesions on the body scab off and the scabs fall off. So once there's return to normal skin. So that could be a couple of weeks before we could say to somebody that you couldn't infect somebody else. In terms of transmission, I know this is a big issue for many people. Although more casual transmission is theoretically possible, now with having had 70,000+ cases, there have been isolated cases where the transmission has not been sexual. So this is primarily, the CDC has sort of said, well, it's not a classic sexually transmitted disease because it's not necessarily present in the genitals, but there are other sexually transmitted infections that can manifest themselves in other parts of the body. So I think that's a difference without a distinction. In other words, for the most part, the way this is manifesting itself is that this is a virus that's being transmitted mainly through intimate bodily contact. But because the nature of the virus is such that certainly it can persist on bedding and on towels, we certainly say that if somebody had an index of suspicion that somebody had monkeypox, certainly using gloves when doing another person using gloves when doing laundry, for example, or using toweling would make sense. But there literally, to my knowledge, been less than 10 cases where the transmission has not been sexual. So we think that common sense precautions make sense. So at a place like Fenway, where we've diagnosed more than 60 people with monkeypox, and some of the manifestations can look like other infectious diseases. So there are more people who have had specimens sent off for monkeypox that tested negative for monkeypox, but had some other sexually transmitted infection, for example. So when people come in the clinic, the clinician is wearing a gown, is wearing gloves, and when they're in very close contact with the patient obtaining specimens, they'll wear a face mask. But this is not a respiratory virus like COVID-19, where one needs to, or something like tuberculosis, where you need negative pressure and have to have extra fit masks. The conventional mask that we wear now, that we wear within the health center, are what what's reasonable for people to wear. In terms of management, as I mentioned, most of the management is symptomatic. Some people are in a lot of pain, keeping the lesions clean, but there is a medication. There's several medications, though some have severe side effects, so they're not very commonly used, but there is a medication available both orally and intravenously called TPOX that inhibits the virus. And so for people who have particularly severe symptoms, that medication is available and has been beneficial, shortening the course of COVID-19. And as more becomes available, there's many of us who feel like it would make sense to give it to everybody so that fewer people are shedding virus sooner. And then in terms of vaccines, there are 2 smallpox vaccines that in small studies have been shown both against animal models and in vitro to have activity also against monkeypox. So one of them, the older smallpox vaccine, the one advantage is it's a one and done vaccine. The trouble is called ACAM 2000. And the trouble with that vaccine is that it does have some side effects, some serious side effects. About 1 in 150 people can develop myocarditis, which is an inflammation around the heart. So it's not a preferred vaccine. And the trouble was at the beginning of the recognition of this epidemic, the CDC had a fair amount of that in their stockpile and said, well, why can't we give that? And a lot of people are saying, not so fast. And there's a newer vaccine, which is made by a company in Europe, and it's called the Jynneos vaccine. That's a 2-shot vaccine. And initially, the CDC only had on hand a very limited supply. And so their initial criteria for who should be vaccinated were quite stringent. And I think we're probably counterproductive because a lot of people don't want to go to a healthcare facility and acknowledge very high risk behaviors. And that was really what was being asked for. But the CDC's rationale was wanting to get the riskiest of the risky people. But it kind of meant that, you know, if somebody said, gee, I got the monkeypox vaccine, they'd be acknowledging to their friends, their family, that they'd had multiple partners, for example, or et cetera. So it not necessarily a winning strategy to get lots of people in. And unfortunately, the kind of relationship that the CDC had with the manufacturer was such that they didn't really ramp up supply very quickly. This summer, there was a lot of hue and crying as there was concern that this could be starting to spiral. Things went much more on emergency footing, and there's much more access to vaccine. So now the criteria to get to the question about who's eligible. The Mass Department of Public Health lists the criteria on their website, but they're pretty permissive. So I would say anybody who really wants to be vaccinated, who says that they're a sexually active individual, particularly if they're cisgender male same-sex behavior, transgender people engaging in sex with men would be at high risk. There have been very few cases in cisgender women, but certainly women who might think that their partners are having multiple other partners would be appropriate candidates. The Jynneos vaccine is safe and well tolerated. It initially was administered as a intradermal vaccination. Now it's subcutaneous, a smaller amount can be used. And the data suggests that 2 doses are key. In terms of the question about how long does it last, the protection from the vaccine, we really don't know because this is a very new epidemic. We do know that people who got the smallpox vaccine when they were young, the earlier smallpox vaccine years ago, not everybody is protected. That in Europe, about 10% of the people who developed monkeypox did have prior exposure to a smallpox vaccine. But again, it was decades ago. So we certainly think that these new vaccines should be protective for at least a decade. But we really don't know for sure because we're just going to have to follow it as we go along. But from the in vitro kind of assays, people mount a strong antibody response when getting this vaccine, so that seems to be highly protective. And then the last issue, because I certainly want to be sure if I haven't covered stuff that people have their questions answered. The last big issue is we are definitely seeing a decrease in the number of cases in the US. And the question is why? And that's a debate. It can be partially because of everybody who was the riskiest of the risky had already gotten infected. Could be that the next group of people who might be at risk got vaccinated. And so it's sometimes called an epidemiology ring vaccination. If you vaccinate all the people who might be contacts of people who are infected, then you can stop an epidemic in its tracks in theory. But there's also good reason to think that there's been substantial behavior change over the summer. So the CDC did a national survey using online apps, and they found that on average, people decreased their number of partners by about half. So there may be some behavior change. Do I think that the monkeypox epidemic is over? No, I think it's, I think one, that's behavior change is hard to sustain, number one. And number two, unfortunately, these are, as we've learned from COVID, and we learned from HIV and everything else, every epidemic, every infectious agent is a plane ride away, a day's plane ride away. We're a small interconnected planet, and there's substantial parts of the world where there's not access to the vaccine. And so I would be concerned that if people let down their guard, virus can certainly be reintroduced, and that's certainly a risk. So we're just going to have to stay tuned. But I think getting back to Adriana's points, the important thing as people involved in community health, we want to give people the facts. We should not be sugarcoating what we know about the epidemiology. But Adriana says it's because the virus got into a particular group of individuals who have contact with people within that core group, that the virus can spread disproportionately in that particular group of individuals. But it's not a gay disease per se, but it's disease where there's a high concentration of the virus in some populations whose behaviors might put them at higher risk for the infection. And that should be sort of the framing. In other words, more value neutral, but certainly saying to people, if you're having a new partner, you should certainly consider getting this vaccine as a means of protection. So maybe I'll just stop there. Oh, I know there's one other thing. There are a lot of resources. So for those who continue to have questions, if you go to the Fenway Health website, just fenwayhealth.org, and then you do /monkeypox, we have a lot of resources there. And then the Mass Department of Public Health has resources. And then lastly, the CDC has a lot of really excellent resources. So if you go to cdc.gov and then you do keyword monkeypox, you'll find a lot of useful information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you, Adriana, so much. I had a question about the Jynneos vaccine.
Yes.
Was that, first of all, is it a messenger RNA vaccine, or is it a traditional?
No, it's traditional. Yeah.
Okay. And was that developed specifically for monkeypox?
No, it was developed for smallpox. And
Okay.
then they did some animal studies, said, oh yeah, it works well for monkeypox because the two viruses are close enough relationship.
Anyone else have any? Go ahead, Amy. Yep.
Oh, I do. I was wondering what the risk of serious illnesses, and have there been any fatalities?
There have been a few fatalities. The risk is low, but there are all kinds of people. So certainly somebody who's immunocompromised, that would be a big concern. But in the US, I know there's been at least one, but it may be like one or two at that level. And globally, again, much smaller numbers. But if the virus continues to spread, particularly in resource-constrained environments, may see fatalities. It generally does not. It's generally not. If somebody dies, it's generally not the virus itself, in the sense that it's not like going deeply invading tissues or like COVID causing direct pulmonary disease, but particularly the skin infections can get secondary bacterial infections, and that can be really a problem. The bigger issue is that there are at least a couple tissues where if the virus is inoculated there, it can cause real problems. So there have been cases where people have had problems around their eyes. So that's a real challenge. And then more commonly is severe proctitis. And there can be enough inflammation that people can develop strictures around the rectum, so that people may even have to have rectal surgery. Again, very uncommon, but those are the kinds of things. So it's certainly not totally benign for everyone, but not a highly lethal virus.
In terms of transmission, it sounds a little bit like the herpes virus transmission, when there's active lesions, it's most transmittable, but you can have viral shedding as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good analogy. Yeah.
I had a question. I'd never figured out how to raise my hand on this thing, true disclosure. But this sometimes works. So yeah, so thanks for all the great work you're doing. It's just really lovely to talk to folks that are educated and out there in the community. I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall sometimes. I think that the questions that I have is really about clinics. We had sort of tried to get a clinic going down here, and we did a quick little survey to see how many folks were interested. And it was just really telling, I think, to realize how far the education has to come, because so many people, I don't think have a sense that it is something they should probably, like, they're not yet thinking, oh, maybe I should get that. They're just sort of like, oh, what's that? And so, I think having the clinic down here would be kind of good. Teresa from Barnstable County Environmental had reached out to us with the idea of doing one at We Thrive. But we didn't have a lot of people who really had said they were interested. And I reached out to Outer Cape Health to see if they wanted to also partner, but they said the directive comes from DPH. So it just sort of seemed like it was a number of steps that weren't quite coalescing. And of course, Fenway is an obvious partner as well. But I think it would be great. I know they've had waiting lists with the P-Town list at Outer Cape, and for a lot of times people couldn't get it down there. And then people were traveling from the Mid Cape. And when I talked to them about folks that they thought if they had a lot of clients that come from the Mid Cape, they said no. So that's just one thought you could answer on. And the other thing I thought was interesting is that my understanding is that if you get the vaccine shot after you get monkeypox, that it is also helpful. Is that correct or not?
Yeah, that's what you mean. You're talking about influenza and monkeypox?
I was talking specifically about monkeypox, that I heard that if you get monkeypox, the vaccine help you afterwards. That was odd.
Oh yeah. That's the idea that you'll goose the immune system to mount a strong response to stop the monkeypox from spreading as much. So that's sort of a post-exposure vaccination. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
But your other point, this seems like a group of very well-connected people here. I think I would suggest having a conversation with Mass Department of Public Health. The point person is Dr. Lawrence Madoff, Larry Madoff. So we might just even reach out and just say, gee, we think there's part of the state that's not really getting as much attention. Because I think, some of it's logistics and coordination, but some of it is them saying, well, we only have X amount of vaccine, and we think we're going to see most of the cases in the city and in P-Town, at least initially. But again, I think we're moving into a different mode where, our concern would be that it may not be as dramatic in terms of spiking number of cases, but it may not go away either. So getting people who, throughout the Commonwealth who are at risk vaccinated, I think would be a key thing. And I think your organizations could play an important role.
Thank you.
Scott, where are you physically located, and where's your clientele that you would be servicing?
You don't mean like my kitchen, right? Totally gotcha. So we are in Hyannis. We're right at downtown Hyannis. We have 3 properties in downtown Hyannis. 2 of them are housing specific, and one of them is where we meet, also has housing resources. And we're pretty regional, so we go up as far as Duxbury and out as far as Fall River on a limited basis. So yeah, with the regional LGBTQ and ally center of the Cape and Islands.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And Adriana, I see you put a lot of good information in the chat there, including Larry Madoff's. Okay, he'll be on the panelists at 5 o'clock. So if folks want more info, they should definitely check that out. And the link for that is on there. I really just want to thank you both for coming today and sharing this information with us. I think there are a lot of misconceptions, a lot of unknowns about this. As someone said in the first set of questions there, you know, we're just getting over COVID or through the COVID pandemic. And it is a little scary to have another epidemic rear its ugly head in the middle of all this. So it's good to have that information. It's good to know what we're looking for and know what to tell people when they come to us with questions as well. So thank you both very much. I really appreciate your time. And if we have other questions, I'm sure we have your contact info and folks, a lot of resources from the chat. We'll make sure we share that with our full group as well. So at this point, if there are no more questions for Ken and Adriana, where's my agenda? I would guess if anyone has any announcements, this would be the time to share them. Yes, announcements is next on the agenda. Any programs or Amy, you always have something. Go ahead.
We have two things coming up. On October 22nd, this was rescheduled from October 1st because of rain, but October 22nd from 12 to 3, we are having our family fun field day at the library on the front lawn, Plymouth Library. It's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So this is, it's going to have some educational component, but it's also going to be fun and a chance for people to get together. It's kid friendly. We're going to have pumpkin painting and GIMP and games and different stories. So definitely kid friendly. Anyone can come. And so that's from 12 to 3 on the 22nd. Everyone hope for good weather, please. And then I don't have a flyer for this yet. When I do, I'll send it out to Kim. But on Saturday, the 29th, we're having our annual psychic fair fundraiser. And the information will be coming out on that. That's usually pretty much an all-day affair from like 10 to 3. And we will have various different kinds of readers, and you can make usually either 15 or half-hour appointments, and you can get tarot cards, angel cards, past life stuff, mediums. We have two also a lady, I'm pretty sure she's coming, a woman coming who does aura photography. So she takes a picture of you, and I don't know how she does it, but there's an aura around you and she tells you what the aura means. I've never had it done, but I've seen numerous pictures, and it's funny because they all come out different. So I don't know what it's about, but it's kind of fun. And so that's on the 29th. And like I said, Kim, when I get the flyer, I will send it off. But thank you.
Where is that, Amy? Where's the fair?
That's actually
It's
at our office. In
Okay.
North Plymouth. So the address will be on it.
Great.
Thanks.
Any other announcements?
Mike, if I could just give a quick plug for the member highlights for SSCP
Yeah.
23. Amy reminded me of it because we kind of put up the first date before it was rescheduled with the rain as a bit of a highlight for Social Resource and Advocacy Center. So I can send it around again as an email to folks, but we're really looking to be more active on both Facebook and trying to get into LinkedIn with Social Community Partners and Prevention. So we're asking for a little almost about your organization. Preferred format is a very brief video. We found that those get viewed a lot and that sort of thing on social media, I think, as we all know, but we'll also take flyers with, logo, mission statement, that sort of thing. So if anyone has ideas for that, please feel free to send them to me at shana23@gmail.com. I'll blast it out again. And Adriana, I will definitely share the Fenway Health post that you were talking about on monkeypox. That'll be great to put up on the social media for this group. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. Good reminder. We're always trying to build our social media bandwidth. I had the brilliant idea, I have great ideas, but my follow through is at least sometimes is lacking. But the idea was to do some 1-minute videos at the health fair last month, but I didn't make it to the health fair, so we didn't get the videos done. So I guess the best way to do it is to put it on folks. And if you can do a quick video about our program or about your organization, your agency, and we would be happy to highlight it on our social media. The other thing I wanted to mention is next month, we are planning to have a panel on veterans health. We're working on bringing panelists together, and we are hoping to do it in person. And we're working on a venue as well. Wednesday mornings are a little bit challenging for Plymouth Library, which has been our go-to space for the last year or so. So we're looking into some alternatives, and we definitely will get more information to you as soon as that comes together. But that date is November 9th, which is the second Wednesday of the month, which is when we have our general meetings. So you'll get more information on that soon. And thank you all. And Christina just put in the chat a link to hear the songs from the Kid Songs program at www.christinanordstrom.com. So check that out. And thank you, Christina. And thank you, Adriana and Ken. And if there are no more announcements, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Amy, second. Sue seconds. Of course she does. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you all for being here. Congratulations to our new steering committee members. And I do want to thank Maureen Doherty. I think we mentioned last year when she had to step down. Maureen took another job. She was at BID Plymouth doing some case coordination, but took another job and is no longer available to be with us. So thank you, Maureen. And thank you to our new members. And thank you for being here today. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.